Hi, everyone, and welcome. I'm Jeanette Mulvey, the editor-in-chief of CO by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. This is our second discussion in a video series we're hosting in partnership with the Chamber's America Works initiative. This series is aimed at helping your business through the workforce shortage. Each month, we'll bring you a discussion with a Chamber expert on a topic that helps you attract, retain, and support your employees through this time. So an estimated 77 million people in the U.S. have been arrested or have a conviction record. Over 600,000 men and women are released from jail each year. Connecting the formerly incarcerated with employment is critical, providing a secure income, stability, and a connection with other members of society. And successfully reintegrating these individuals brings many advantages to them and to American businesses. So here today, we're talking about how small businesses can consider integrating returning citizens. We have Latricia Boone, who is Vice President of Equality of Opportunity at the U.S. Chamber. Hi, Latricia.
Hi, Jeanette. Great to see you as always. How are you today?
You too. Thank you so much. So can you explain to everyone what is second chance hiring and how can it be beneficial to employers, communities, and the nation?
Yeah, absolutely. So second chance hiring has been defined as the practice of giving individuals with a criminal record or who have been, some would say, justice impacted, a fair and equal opportunity at employment. For employers, second chance hiring taps into a huge source of talent that many businesses can benefit from. As you mentioned, there are an estimated 77 million Americans with an arrest or conviction record. And that is roughly 1 out of every 3 U.S. adults that face significant barriers to finding employment or reintegration into society. And let's say 27% of ex-convicts in the U.S. remain unemployed. So the first thing I want to note is that there's a clear advantage to considering these individuals as to be part of our workforce. We offer them a fresh start, the chance to support and take care of themselves and their families. And for second chance employers, we see clear benefits from tapping into a talented labor force to meet workforce needs. Lastly, we believe society gains when justice impacted individuals are connected to employment opportunities, from reducing recidivism to the continued development of our human capital.
Latricia, did you say 1 in 3?
Yeah.
I can't imagine. That is shocking to me. And I'm sure that most people watching right now had no idea that we were talking about 1/3 of the workforce.
Mm-hmm.
So if I was a small business owner, I would be thinking right now, that's great, but this isn't something that there's anything I can do about this. So how can small businesses think about this?
Yeah, I would say first, any business, small businesses we want to focus on today, but really any business considering second chance hiring should be doing it for the right reasons. And we don't decide what those right reasons are for a business, but we want businesses to take a step back and think about for themselves, what does that mean? We have been talking to companies, small and large, around, or mid-size, around what does this actually mean for your workforce? What are the benefits? And we've learned that businesses are investing in programs for different reasons. Some are due to their personal professional experience or having been witnesses to the experience of someone close to them, some because it aligns with their values and principles. And most, or I would say all, are thinking about this because it truly is a workforce strategy. That profound statistic we just gave lets you know that there's an untapped pool of individuals out there that can add so much value. And I think the increasing visibility of the success of second and fair chance hiring programs and the models that we've seen have led many businesses to consider adopting it as a practice for themselves. I think what's most important is that you, as a business owner, as a small business owner, as I said, get really clear about your why, the potential benefits to your company, and start having some really important conversations internally with your teams to strategize on what implementation could look like. And the other thing I would say is, if you're thinking about this, learn from other companies. And again, small businesses are already doing this. There are mid-sized companies that are doing it. That there's some best practices that we can learn from and think about how they've implemented in their own businesses. Last year, we hosted an event at the chamber and published a report on second chance hiring. We got to feature some major corporations, some small businesses. But what came out of that is some clear data, resources, tools, and recommendations for organizations that you can connect with in your community as you even begin to just explore this as a workforce strategy. So I'd say for small businesses, it's essentially how you implement a second chance hire program is just as important as your why.
Well, let's talk about that. So, if a small business said, you know what, actually, this could really be great for my company, we're having a problem attracting employees, and this is a great option that we haven't considered, how would they get started?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I mentioned before, I would definitely recommend looking at some of the resources we've already developed at the US Chamber of Commerce. I'd recommend connecting with other companies, both small and larger, because I think there's some lessons learned that can be shared with our small businesses as well, to learn more about some of what they've been able to take and what they've captured in doing this work. And then I'd also advise connecting with community organizations who are working with justice impacted individuals. Depending on where your business is located, there are organizations that are very interested in building relationships and partnerships. And you can just begin to explore ways that a partnership might work for you. Because once you've taken that step of sitting down internally, making some strategic decisions about why you're doing this, how you want to implement, you can learn from others and think about who are the right community partners for you to engage in this process. The last thing I'll underscore is that the need for some internal conversations with key staff. I said it before, but it really, really is important. What I've learned in talking to some of our companies that we work with, businesses, but also with some of the community organizations we work with, is that the folks who are going to be responsible for implementing or carrying this out, and if you're a small business, that, it depends on who that could be. It could be yourself, or it could be a staff person who's going to be doing this, who's now in the role of hiring. But you want to get really clear and aligned on how your company will approach this. And potentially, if there's buy-in that's necessary, make sure you're doing that. You're answering the questions that the folks who are going to be implementing this workforce strategy will have, to ensure that the team is ready to really advance with this approach. I think that's important, because there are staff who may have other questions, may need additional resources, may just need to get a little bit more of an education process, and you want to make sure you can provide that for them. I recognize, as a small business owner, there are some limited resources that you may have. So it's about how you use that ecosystem and connect with resources that exist within the community, and make sure your staff has what they need and are equipped to adequately set up these efforts for success. And of course, making sure you have some realistic expectations. We won't go in deeply into that, but I think there's some learning that we can do from the conversations that we had last year with employers, but also last month. We actually hosted a conversation in April with some employers, and I think did a great job of helping us think about what are some realistic expectations we can have as we are forging down the path of this workforce strategy.
I think you make a really good point that you need your team to get on board, and that it's going to be a joint effort to make sure that everyone is successful if you decide to pursue this as a hiring strategy. Now, we haven't talked about government incentives or programs. So, are there incentives for employers to do this?
Yeah, there definitely are, and I'm going to say that through our Equality of Opportunity initiative, we are really proud to engage and sometimes have been collaborating with government agencies, especially at the federal level, including the Department of Commerce, on some of the resources and things that they've developed to support employers. And I will also say that recently the White House shared some announcements on ways that they plan to invest and support companies who are leveraging second chance hiring as a workforce approach. But some of the incentives include tax credits, bonding opportunities. There are grants available from the federal government. And if your primary concern is financial, the Federal Work Opportunity Tax Credit really gives employers who hire a qualified, what they say is ex-felon, a tax credit of up to 25% of their first year's wages if the employee works at least a certain amount of hours a week. I think it's 120 hours, and 40% if they work over 400 hours. If your primary concern is risk, the Department of Labor, the US Department of Labor, has established the Federal Bonding Program, often referred to as FPB, to provide fidelity bonds of up to $25,000 for what they refer to as at-risk or hard-to-place job seekers. So the bond protects employers against employee fraud or dishonesty in the first 6 months of employment at no cost to the job applicant or the employer, which is really great. And if you're looking for an easy way to get started in second chance employment, you can sign up to be partners to organizations looking to develop high quality paid work experience for all eligible participants in the Growth Opportunities Grant Program. So this is a federal level program, but that again incentivizes you to work with community partners on the ground to be able to execute on this work. After this program, we'll be sharing a video and an article that provide a guide explaining some of the earlier mentioned resources like tax credit, bonding, and grant opportunities. But hopefully that gives you just an idea of what's out there, and the resources we share after will dig a bit deeper and offer some steps to how you can access and engage with federal employment opportunities.
Yeah, so I was going to that's what I was going to ask you next. If a business wants to take advantage of these programs that you're talking about, which again, I didn't know these programs existed. And those bonds in particular seem like a great insurance policy for a business who's not 100% sure they want to do this, but it seems like incentive that might help you take a chance on doing this. Can you talk about those resources and where businesses can find them?
Yeah. So again, we will share after this call a guide that's going to have links to the spaces online where you can find more details about it. And I will also say that if you go to, sometimes it's hard to navigate our government websites because there's so many resources and information, but the Department of Commerce and both the White House recently released some new announcements that I think are easily to navigate and find. But again, we will also share them. And I will say that there are other organizations out there who offer resources too, even outside of the government resources. The Second Chance Business Coalition, which is a newer initiative that started a few years ago, but has really been doing some great work in this space and supporting companies. Dave's Killer Bread Foundation, which we featured in our last Equality of Opportunity in Action discussion that we held last month, also available on our website if you were not able to view that. They're doing some really great work in this space, and they were a small business that really navigated this and have grown and has seen this as a workforce strategy that has benefited and offer great value to them as a company. The Society for Human Resource Management's foundation has an initiative called Getting Talent Back to Work, also a great website for you to look at and learn more. And as I mentioned before, the chamber itself produced a report, The Business Case for Criminal Justice Reform, Second Chance Hiring, which explored the benefits to employers that hire formerly incarcerated individual. We identified barriers to entry. We highlighted programs and organizations that are working to break down these barriers and really discussed developments concerning state and federal legislation that supports second and fair chance hiring. So there's a lot of recommendations in that, and we will also link to that in the follow-up to this conversation. As I mentioned, we've had several equality of opportunity and action events around this topic where we featured policymakers, business leaders, and others who have been sharing some of what public-private sector partnerships look like to create and implement these initiatives. And I also note that the U.S. Chamber Foundation released a report maybe a few years ago, but it was a really great report. It was a special edition magazine that outlined the stories and best practices of companies implementing second chance hiring. And we featured small businesses there because I think it's really important to note that it could look different depending on the size of your company and really bring some of those best practices forward on what this looks like. So I'll say again, because I always have to reiterate, after this program, we are definitely going to share the guide that explains some of the tax credit, bonding, and grant opportunities. But I just want to reiterate how important it is for business leaders like yourselves to do your research and work with, as much as you possibly can, national and local organizations to really ensure the successful integration of this work. We have a lot of resources out there that also includes links to other websites, and want to make sure that as you're doing your research, you have a chance to access those, dig in more deeply, and then you'll know what your questions are, and you can reach back out to our team or others to be able to get answers, or at least get directed to the individuals who can offer answers for that.
Yeah, and all of those resources we will link to,
Yeah.
Latricia, from the article that our audience is watching this video in right now. So it'll all be in one place for them. That's all we have time for, Latricia. I thank you so much. Thank you to the viewers, and we hope you found this discussion very helpful.